Welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us because today we are unpacking a highly profound, highly structured philosophical text. If you've ever found yourself wondering how different spiritual frameworks categorize the universe, life, and, well, what happens next, you are in for a seriously fascinating ride. Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to look closely at a text that systematically maps out the actual mechanics of the soul. We'll break down these complex ideas step by step so you can clearly see the architecture of this entire worldview.
Now, I want you to consider this. What if life on Earth is literally just a temporary classroom for the soul? And what if true death is fundamentally different from what modern medicine tells us? It's a pretty provocative hook, right? It asks us to completely suspend our standard biological understanding of human existence. You see, the framework we're exploring today doesn't just ask us to passively believe in an afterlife, it presents a highly detailed, mechanical explanation for how our souls operate across centuries, aiming to radically shift how we view our everyday struggles.
The source material we're distilling today is Ryuho Okawa's book, Progress Thinking. Specifically, we're going to focus our explainer entirely on Chapter 8. This specific chapter is remarkable because of how systematically it breaks down the cosmology of the soul, the mechanics of reincarnation, and the exact nature of the spiritual world. Now, we aren't here to debate the theology, but rather to impartially map out exactly what the author claims. By relying directly on the text, we're going to uncover the precise blueprint this book offers for human existence. Part 1. The Blueprint of the Soul, the Cycle of Reincarnation. Okay, we're shifting right into the mechanics of how the text claims human souls actually operate within the cycle of reincarnation. The author doesn't just vaguely say we come back. He provides a very specific numerical structure. It's the concept of the soul as a team. According to the text, a soul isn't just born in the womb. It exists long before conception. But here is the major twist. A human soul is actually part of a 6-person spiritual collective, 1 core soul and 5 branch souls. And they don't all come to Earth at once. Instead, these members take turns reincarnating every few hundred years. While one is down here on Earth navigating life, the other 5 are in the spirit world, sharing those earthly experiences in real time. Why? Well, the text states the ultimate goal of this entire system is the continuous accumulation of wisdom for the whole group. The material puts it super clearly, reading, "The human soul is not just a single spiritual body, but a group, sharing experiences to become wisdom." This completely changes the paradigm of personal growth, doesn't it? In this framework, you are literally never learning alone. Your struggles, your victories, those quiet moments of realization, they aren't just for you. They're being instantly uploaded, so to speak, to your spiritual collective. Every earthly experience contributes to a much greater spiritual database. Part 2. Earthly illusions, forgetting the divine promise. So, you might be wondering, if this system is so perfect and collaborative, why is human life often so incredibly difficult? Well, the source asserts that human suffering actually stems from a profound amnesia. The text explicitly says that we are not fragile clay dolls made to simply break and disappear. We are eternal souls. The core issue, according to Chapter 8, is that upon being born into this physical dimension, humans forget their spiritual origins and the divine promises they made before birth. We get totally wrapped up in the physical world and lose sight of the fact that we're actually in a temporary training ground. And this leads to a pretty deep conflict in the world today. The text critiques modern society for trying to determine what is right and wrong simply by counting heads, majority rule. In stark contrast, it argues that spiritual truth and righteousness cannot be voted on. True correctness, according to this worldview, requires aiming for eternal, divine teachings. The author impartially critiques our reliance on social consensus, basically stating that just because a lot of people believe something doesn't actually make it spiritually true. Part 3. Redefining Death, this silver cord. This disconnect between earthly consensus and spiritual reality leads us to what is probably the most provocative part of this explainer, a complete redefinition of human death. How we define the end of life has massive implications in this philosophy. The author draws a very sharp line between medical death, where brainwaves or the heart stops, and spiritual death. The text argues vehemently against the standard medical definition. Instead, it introduces the idea of a silver cord, an invisible, ethereal line connecting the physical body to the soul. According to the text, a human has only truly transitioned when this silver cord is permanently severed. Physical organ failure absolutely does not equal the soul's departure. If you look directly at page 190 of the original text, The author explicitly addresses the modern medical definition of brain death, pushing back against it hard. The text claims that if we view humans merely as biological machines, we make grave mistakes at the end of life. The soul, the author insists, lingers until that silver cord finally snaps, which can actually happen a day or so after the heart has already stopped beating. Part 4. The Threat of Ignorance, Earthbound Spirits, and NDEs. Now, why is knowing the exact timing of death so absolutely crucial? Well, the text outlines some incredibly intense consequences for ignoring these spiritual truths. To understand the stakes here, the author first points to near-death experiences, or NDEs. The text views these not as biological hallucinations caused by a dying brain, but as deliberate educational events. Under ideal circumstances, souls leave the body painlessly and are aided by beings of light. The author claims that the spirit world actually orchestrates these near-death experiences globally, sending souls back to their bodies specifically to teach the living that the afterlife is real and to get them prepared for it. But what happens if you just don't know? The book's framework states, if you die without knowing the existence of the soul, you have nowhere to go and become a wandering soul. The author believes that spiritual ignorance isn't just a matter of having different opinions. It is deeply, actively dangerous to the individual soul. If you firmly believe that death is just a blackout into nothingness, your soul will literally not know how to detach and move on. The text lays out a highly specific and, frankly, a very intense chain of events. First, an unaware soul experiences medical death. Because they don't believe in an afterlife, their soul clings in a panic to the physical body, and that silver cord remains intact. Next, and this is where the text takes a highly controversial stance, the author claims that if the body is cremated or if organs are harvested for donation during this time, the soul actually feels the trauma because they are still attached. Finally, this immense shock and confusion traps them right here on Earth as a wandering, earthbound spirit. We present this strictly to illustrate exactly why the author argues that knowing spiritual truth is a critical matter of spiritual survival. Part 5. The Solution. The Bodhisattva Ideal. All right, so having established the mechanics of the soul and the real dangers of ignorance, the author doesn't just leave us hanging in fear. There is an ultimate, highly positive goal here, the ideal of the Bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is defined as an enlightened individual who deliberately steps away from their own ego. By accumulating spiritual wisdom over those multiple lifetimes, remember that group of 6 we talked about earlier, the soul eventually reaches a completely selfless state. They realize the absolute truth of eternal life, and rather than serving themselves, they dedicate their entire existence to guiding and saving the world around them. And how do you actually reach that state? Well, it starts with education. The author redefines a very common legal phrase here. The text states that the ultimate right to know is not about political secrets or earthly news. It is about understanding the truth of the afterlife. True salvation and the ability to help save others requires deep spiritual education. You have the fundamental right, the author argues, to know that your life is eternal and to truly understand the rules of the realm you will inevitably return to. Which brings us to our final thought. We've mapped out a highly specific blueprint today. A 6-person soul collective, the severing of the silver cord, the real dangers of modern amnesia, and the noble path of the Bodhisattva. If our earthly lives are really just one brief chapter in a continuous cycle of gaining wisdom, how will you choose to live your chapter today? Whether you take this text quite literally or as a profound metaphor for living selflessly, this structural philosophy definitely challenges us to look far beyond our immediate daily frustrations. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.